Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Pure Joy Podcast. I'm your host, Elena Love, and I'm super excited to have Kedarji back on the podcast again today for a second time. Welcome, Kedarji. I'm glad you're here.
Happy to be here, and thanks for inviting me back.
Yeah, so we got a couple things we're doing together, but first I want to just tell you guys a little bit about Kedarji. He's a spiritual teacher of Yoga and Siddha Science, as well as a holistic well-being visionary and natural healing scientist. He has a reputation of leading with love, and he's the founder of the Bhakta School of Transformation, an Ohio-based not-for-profit public charity devoted to lasting inner peace and total well-being. In his company, people learn the daily rituals and methods of the most spiritually powerful, happiest, and healthiest people on the planet. He leads by example in becoming both wise and well with a powerful, heart-centered approach that completely embraces vibrant health. With his Ecology of Well-Being and 4 pillars of total well-being, the spiritual power, improved mental state, emotional resilience, and vibrant health as the foundation, he leads students in an exact science for both wisdom and well-being. And this includes opening pathways to vibrant health. I love how much you talk about vibrant health because I feel like that really is a pillar for overall health and, for living a good life. And I would love to hear just a little bit more about like how you go about offering this to people because you're a nonprofit. So is this something, I know you do retreats and we'll talk about your upcoming retreat, but like what are some of the ways that you're able to interact with people and help people?
We have several programs. We do a total well-being challenge each year. That's a 90-day challenge that happens in combination with online recordings of lessons interdispersed with live webinars and live brick and mortar programs. And so we're on our fourth one of those. We do one a year annually that's pretty well attended. And then we have we have a live webinar series. We have a home study course, which is quite extensive, that covers our entire 4 pillars and our ecology of well-being approach. And then we do courses from time to time that are typically 3 or 4 days, usually evenings, weekday evenings, 3 or 4 evenings at a time, on various topics that again embody our 4 pillars, that include quite a bit, quite extensive with respect to vibrant health, lifestyle medicine that's included. We believe that lifestyle is the cure, along with really being very focused on keeping this body that is a temple in which God resides really healthy and really pure.
Yeah, there's just so much in that. And so I'm wondering, like, can you give me an example, like just for you, because you've been doing it, this practice for many, many years, I'm guessing. Like, what is a typical day, like while incorporating these practices, what would a typical day or week or even month look like?
Well, every day for me starts with meditation and chanting. This is the first of our 4 pillars, the spiritual power. And we need power for everything. We live on a rock that hangs in a void of space, spinning on an axis in an orbit around a fireball. And it's been doing so for longer than anyone knows, but in a very orderly fashion, right? So orderly that we can pin 24 hours in a day on one rotation of the Earth back and forth on its axis, 365 days in a year on one rotation of the Earth around the sun. We can make very accurate predictions on the waxing and waning of the moon. So there is a law here that no president, no drug cartel, no sovereign wealth trust, no group of wealthy elite, no army, no nation, no one can redirect, manipulate, or change the fact that we're on this rock, spinning in an orbit around the sun in a very orderly fashion. But there's power there. There's a sacred law that causes everything to be here in perfect harmony if we will only recognize the harmony by recognizing that sacred law. And that power I refer to as the energy substratum of everything. And so we are energetic beings. Everything in form is really a mass of energy in form. And so for me, I always start my day with it's really praise. It's really a glorification of this highest power, it's very important to wake up with one's heart singing and dancing with indescribable joy.
Yeah.
And so that's how I start my day. And then everything flows from there with respect to, even though I may have a day planned with to-dos that I have to get done, often that list gets thrown out because of what happens spontaneously, being inspired spontaneously throughout my day, which is a very important benefit of my many, many years of this practice of meditation, chanting, mantra yoga. And then, of course, I'm very disciplined about what I put into my mouth. And I've been on a whole food plant-based regimen for many, many years that I use to heal myself of some very serious illnesses, including type 2 diabetes and obesity. And so the food that I take, which is all organic, whole foods, I'm very careful about how they're balanced. And it's part of, for me, my offering to the highest. So that when I'm feeding myself, my understanding is that I'm making a blessed sacrament to God that's keeping this body healthy. So I'm very disciplined at when I take my meals each day at the same time. I engage in intermittent water fasting regularly because I have experienced, as many others who come here, that it's probably the best metabolic reboot on the planet, and also can be a really great cure for chronic health conditions and diseases. And we've used that here. So I'm engaged in fasting each and every week. And then the rest is my approach to my work with respect to administrative tasks and the leadership role that I'm engaged in with my school, for me is an offering, again, a blessed sacrament to the highest. That's always the understanding that I hold, that I don't own or possess the outcomes, that my duty is to perfect the activity. My spiritual mentor would say, become very, very one-pointed on each task, so one-pointed that you lose yourself in joy of just performing the task. And that's my experience. And so I stick with that. So that's my day. I wake up in joy, I work in joy, I go to sleep in joy. What could be better than that?
I love it. And I know that you didn't just get there, like, I mean, I'm sure there was a process, and that's why you have this school. But I like the idea of waking up in joy. However, there's people on the planet, maybe listening, that wake up in chronic pain, or they're in emotional pain, or they just don't have that zest for life. And so, I love the idea of, so you do have like a certain chant that you're saying the same every day, or does it just depend on your mood? You wake up at the same time every day?
Well, I have many chants that I do, but let me come back to your point about some people wake up in pain and in varying situations of duress or distress. That's why we have the 4 pillars. So the second pillar is an improved mental state. There are methods that, if practiced as instructed, work incredibly well, even for people who are in the most difficult situations with respect to their mentality, their emotionality, or their health conditions. And when I say work very, very well, the reason that we know this is because in 18 and a half, 19 years, we've done a lot of case studies where we follow students for a period of 2 to 5 years after they graduate from our programs. And that's how we know that these methods work. So always the first start with improved mental state is to address the restless mind, because a mind that is restless produces useless tendencies. For example, fear, doubt, worry, anxiety, sarcasm, cynicism, anger, depression, the corruption of greed. All of these come in our studies from a mind that is restless. And when the mind is not reined in, when that restlessness is not addressed, then it impacts our emotional state in the following way, because our third pillar is emotional resilience. And what emotional resilience means is that we have God-given humanity. And I do believe it's God's will that we express our humanity. And that the expression involves emotions. So how do you express your humanity without becoming slaves to your emotions? So this is the big deal, because
Yeah.
this requires emotional resilience. It requires the ability to utilize the emotions, to direct the emotions without becoming enslaved by them to the point where an experience of an emotion causes one to contract. So if the mind is restless, then we reach for understandings, because understandings always dictate how we feel. The understandings that we reach for in the moment always dictate how we're going to feel in the moment. And that dictates how we're vibrating, meaning what we're putting out, what we're projecting outwardly. And that, of course, dictates from moment to moment what we attract into our circumstances. And so, if the mind is restless, there is a tendency to reach for understandings that are not useful with respect to spiritual growth or well being.
Right.
Understandings like, for example, we've been in a state of emergency for more than a year here. And sometimes I get emails from people saying that there is collusion between governments to destroy human beings and to develop a new species, right? Well, that's one understanding. And so reaching for that understanding triggers immediately certain emotions that become contracting.
Yeah, definitely.
And so the thing is, we are raised to accept understandings blindly without questioning them. We did it with our parents.
Mhm.
We did it with authority figures in school as we were being taught. We do it to a certain extent with respect to popular media, that we just accept understandings because they're popular, or we do it because we want to fit in. And that's the way to fit in, right? And be accepted. But in spiritual life, and with respect to our well-being, all the way down to the health of ourselves, it's necessary to go back and just simply examine all of the understandings that we've accepted without questioning, and to ask, is this understanding useful any longer for the direction I wish to go in? Because if it's not, it has to be discarded
Right.
so
I'm
that we
really
stop
glad.
reaching for it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're bringing this up because this is a big deal. I
Yeah.
mean, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like if you're watching mainstream media, you're getting fed that information, which may or may not be true, and a lot of people don't even question it. But then you've got the conspiracy theory side where everybody's like, the world's going to hell in a handbasket, and oh my gosh, the evil beings are coming to get us. And like either side is like a crazy dichotomy of like, and like I love that you said that, like going, and I always say to people, I just trust my heart. That's all I can trust. But how do we get to a place of trusting our heart? Because, like you said, if someone is in this place of they think that getting the vaccine and, you know, doing what the mainstream media says by wearing masks and staying away from people indefinitely, they feel like they're being a good citizen and they're doing the right thing. Like how does someone kind of get to a new place of understanding?
Uh, yeah, right. So rather than just bowing to the farmer gods, so to speak. so, so again, we always start with the restless mind. The fact is, you mentioned the heart, and it's a very good point. But if the heart is covered with all kinds of useless impressions, false understandings, then it's very difficult for people to get to their heart
Mm-hmm.
because of where their restless minds take them. And so the restless mind needs to be addressed first, because that's a process that helps to purify, to remove the veil of the heart, because God exists in each and every one of us equally. This highest power, that same power that has brought the entire cosmos into being, is a part of our God nature. It's always there. It can't be given to us. It can't be taken away from us. But we do, by our own power, pull a veil down over it. We cover it up.
Yeah.
We conceal it. So the purpose of any spiritual practice is to remove that veil, to stop concealing what's already there. Because once the veil is removed, anyone can trust their heart.
Yeah.
Once the veil is removed, the inspiration of God wells up spontaneously. God or the self or the ultimate reality, the labels don't matter. It's that power, that energy substratum. So in working with the mind, to make the restless mind quiet, there are methods that have been used for millennia that are excellent for proceeding. And if I may take 2 or 3 minutes to do one,
Yeah, I would love
leave
it.
you in your So this is we're going to practice a meditation on the mantra aham.
Okay.
Aham. And
Uh,
it means, yeah, aham. And it means I am. Now, some people are going to say, well, so what? I am. I'll just repeat it in English. The Sanskrit mantra aham, if you repeat the mantra itself, has a specific frequency. These mantras in Sanskrit, which is the oldest human tongue on the planet, evolved out of sages listening very, very carefully to frequencies
mm,
that cause these mantras to emanate as syllables. And so that's why we use aham rather than just saying I am. But it means I am, right?
yeah.
I am what? I am.
I
I am.
exist.
You don't have to become anything.
Yeah.
You already are. You're already perfect. I am. You are already that which has been, is now, and will always be. This is the proclamation I am. Just I am. So what we're going to do for a short period is you're going to inwardly and quietly repeat aham once on the in breath, once on the out breath, inwardly and quietly. So I'm going to ask everyone just to close your eyes gently. Now listen to the sound that your breath makes as you breathe in slowly and steadily and exhale slowly and steadily. And now as you continue to breathe slowly and steadily, inhalation, exhalation, just inwardly and quietly repeat aham, aham, aham. Once on the in breath, once on the out breath, while you pay attention to these spaces between your breaths. So we'll just meditate like this for a short period until you hear my voice again. Very good. So now you can just slowly and gently take a deep breath in, inhaling as deeply as you can, and exhaling as far as you can go. And now you can gently open your eyes. And I've got a question for you and for your viewers. Viewers, you can make a mental note or you can jot this down, your answers. First question, and I'll use Elena to ask the question directly too. Are you feeling better and is your mind calmer now than just before we practice the method?
Definitely. I definitely feel more in my heart and just more of a like almost a vibrational energy of peace
Mm.
flowing from me.
And the only other question is, while you were practicing the method, was there any fear in your mind?
Absolutely not.
So now this admittedly is a glimpse, but with practice of meditation, and we have several of these that we instruct, it's kind of like this. You know, the oil companies make a ton of money. They spend a lot of money doing these seismic tests before they start drilling, right? To find out where are the pockets of oil, whether it be beneath the ocean floor or underneath a mountain. So they use these seismic tests, they find the oil. Now they set up a rig, they start digging, and they dig and they dig and they hit a lot of bedrock. And these drill bits are very expensive and they break bits. And then when they break a bit, the engineer calls and says, "Hey, we just broke another one. Do you want us to keep digging?" And the oil company executive says, "You let me worry about the expense of the drill, of the bits. You keep digging because we know the oil is there
Yeah.
and we're going to get it out." So meditation is like that. We know the ocean of love is there. We know the ocean of peace is there. We know that the state of fearlessness that is a spiritual principle is there. Sometimes there's bedrock, the restless mind.
Mhm.
So daily practice is like that oil rig, and they're drilling down because they know the oil is there. So we practice, we instruct a daily practice like meditations like these, that we tell people to meditate for periods of time every day, along with some chanting and some japa mantra yoga. These are all methods for quieting the mind so that the glimpses become more and more frequent. And then gradually, one becomes more and more established in that experience that you just described, right? And so it's just like they're digging for the oil and they get some oil popping up and spraying out. And the engineer says, "Oh, we hit it." And the guy who's got the lens on with the camera down at the bottom says, "No, we haven't hit the oil yet. It's just a little
Big,
bit. We got to keep, I got to keep digging, but
yeah,
it's there. Just keep going, right?" And so that's kind of like we get these glimpses. Just keep going,
I love
right?
that. I
Just
love that you
understand.
started out with like just 4 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes, because I think of what a lot of people think is like, hey, you've heard them all. I don't have time, or I can't sit for that long. My mind just
Right.
starts wandering. But I love the idea of just starting really small and then growing it. And I wanted to say that this practice that you're offering, there's so many people that want to have a practice, but they don't know where to start. So I love that you're guiding people through, like you mentioned the japa, is it japa yoga?
Yes,
And
mantra yoga, japa, right?
mantra yoga, the chanting and the meditation. So like for me to have all three of those things before I even start my day, like you said, that's going to make, and I haven't even done yours, but I'm imagining that's going to make anybody's day go 100% better than it was
Oh yeah.
planning on going, right?
Oh yeah. Much brighter, much brighter. There's so much light in it. And once people get a taste of the shift and the difference, then they're more enthusiastic about maintaining the practice. Even though distractions do come up, this is why we tell people to journal. Be a good scientist. When you have a great experience with these practices, write it down. Because one day your restless mind is going to tell you, you haven't made any progress. You haven't had a damn experience, not one single experience. And like a scientist does, they go back and they read the study. Here
Yeah,
it is, right there. You did have an experience. And here's another one that you had. And you had joy on this day too. So journaling is a very big part of our practice here
I
because the con game that the restless mind pulls with the ego can entrap anyone very quickly into thinking,
not working. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's a, it's not working. It was a nice little hobby, it was a fantasy. Now let me go back to, my regular drudgery.
Yeah, like I didn't get anything out of that. Well, I love because there's so many, like Tim Ferriss is someone who wrote the 4 Hour Work Week and the 4 Hour Body, and he talks about he's gone to, like, I remember like back in 1995, that was a really good year for me. And he has journals, so he'll go back and he goes, "What was I doing? Oh, I was doing these workouts, I was doing this meditation." So like it's chronicling your life, and I
Yeah,
really love the idea of writing for. Set a timer for 10 minutes a day, and I've been doing this now for a couple months straight. And wow, like you said, like there could be days where I'm feeling really joyous and I'll look back and I'll go, "Oh yeah, there was a day that I wasn't." So like knowing that everything comes in cycles.
yes,
And it also helps me on the days I'm feeling the blues because I can see, "Oh, I got out of that," you
yeah,
know?
yeah. You have a record of how you did it too.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, so this part is, to me, is crucial, this morning practice. And then you mentioned fasting, which, as you know, all these people are writing books right now about fasting, and fasting has become, even though we know it's been around forever, it has become, it's kind of, you know how things come in cycles, it's resurfacing. And I particularly am a practitioner of fasting. I love how I feel. It can really hit the reset button. So can you tell us a little bit about your fasting practices? And
Yes.
is this something you recommend that your students do as well?
Absolutely. And so just I began in increments many, many years ago. What I mean by increments is that I would fast, we call it 15 nines. I would eat all my food in 9 hours and fast for 15 until the next morning. So that's a 15-9 regimen that we find with all of the students who come here works very well, even with the people who are really they're really not convinced they should be fasting, and they're really worried about it. We put them on that 15-9 program once a week to start with.
Well, that's it. Just one time a week. That's easy.
One time a week to begin, right? Because then when people begin to see the benefit, they often start to shift their meal plans and the time that they eat so that they're doing 15 nines every day, so that they have a 15-hour window between their last meal and the next meal the next morning is actually ideal. That's really,
Yeah.
really great for the metabolism. And then from there, that's where I started. And then I did 24-hour intermittent water fasting,
Mhm.
just water, no food, nothing else for 24-hour periods. And now I do 48 hours a week. Weekends, I take nothing except water. I built up to that. And then we have some people who have literally, with our supervision and when necessary, you can do intermittent water fasting. For most people, they can do up to 5 days without being medically monitored. After 5 days, you really should be medically monitored. So we have situations where people have done 5, 6, 8 days, and then we have relationships with naturopaths and osteopaths, and we ask them to come in if we need monitoring. But those people have cured diseases in an 8-day intermittent water fast,
It's
have
amazing.
reversed.
Like
Yeah,
within a week, you can be
yeah,
a completely different person. So someone
yes,
that's experiencing chronic pain right now, or just so much that comes from inflammation, like because I know this from experience as well, to think that if you fast forwarded a week and you fasted, and however that is for you, if you need to do juice on a couple days, if you're
sure.
new, whatever,
Juice or tea,
you can
herb tea.
have a completely new body within a week
Well,
and
yeah,
experiencing
yeah,
completely different.
because
Yeah.
people don't realize that in a 24-hour period, our stem cells have the duty of regenerating 50 billion cells in a 24-hour period. And so if those stem cells are not functioning optimally, that regeneration doesn't occur, but it's supposed to happen. Our bodies are like a construction site on a regular basis, constantly rejuvenating.
Yes.
So what the intermittent water fasting does is it supports that process of the stem cells, and then there are the 10 mother cells that all of the other stem cells come from, to continually optimize that process of 50 billion cells being regenerated. And if they're not functioning properly, they go through autophagy first and then apoptosis. So we get new cells in
Yeah.
every 24-hour period. With the microbiome, it's every 3 days. There's a complete cellular replacement. So intermittent water fasting really helps support that process because due to lifestyle, of course, there's a breakdown in how that works, right? So
And I love the autophagy part. And I know that during that 24-hour fast, I think it's when you hit hour 18, I want to say.
18, you got it.
That's
Yep,
when the autophagy kicks in. So people that want to feel and look younger, instead of spending all this money on going and getting, treatments,
right.
just fasting one day, like you're saying, pick a Sunday and fast start with 18 and then move up to 24. But I love this because I get really motivated and inspired when I fast. People think, oh, it's going to be hard, but you can probably attest to this. Like when you start fasting, that God light turns on in us, and we get, oh, I want to meditate more, or oh, I want to take better care of myself. Well, my first meal, I'm not just going to eat some sugar. I'm going to like find the best organic, salad or food that I can put in. And you wouldn't believe it, but after even your first 24 hours of doing it, something switches in you. And you're
Yes,
talking about that heart connection. I
yes.
feel like a lot of that veil is from the sugar, flour, gluten, fried foods. The horrible foods we're eating are actually causing this layer over our connection to the divine. And that's what happened to me when I became a raw foodist. I was like, oh my gosh, there's this energy that I didn't even know existed before. And my
Right.
intuition and my confidence and my divine spark all just flooded in. And I don't think it matters where people start. They can start with the chanting, they can start with the meditation, they can start with the fasting, they can start with the, eating more healthy raw food. Not that they need to eat only raw food, but just start somewhere, right?
Start at the most, start at the point that is most comfortable for you.
Mhm.
That's the clue, right? The point of least resistance that you're most comfortable with is where to start. And then you mentioned something about fasting connected to this opening of the heart. And then there's something else that's a very important part of it. And there's something else that also occurs that when, at least for me, when I solidified my practice of fasting over many, many years, my body is stronger now. How do I know that? Because I'm a scientist, so I work out in the gym, and I've measured what I can lift now as opposed to 10 years ago. I'm so much stronger. I'm
Wow.
so much stronger on my runs. I'm stronger on everything. And when I fast now over the weekends, I work out, and my body is stronger.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So
I
it really
love it.
does strengthen the core of our being on a physical level, while also opening up the meridian channels to allow the Shakti to begin to flow, which is that increase in the experience of our God nature that happens when that occurs. So,
I love that. And I
yeah,
love it because as we age, I've heard so many people my age or, around this age saying, oh, as we get older, things just start to fall apart, or I'm losing my strength. Or I heard someone say recently, I don't recover as quickly as I used to. And I was like, I don't really think that needs to be true. Like, I think
no,
that's a belief system, like you started with. Like, we have these belief systems of like, oh, as you age, fill in the blank, you know.
right,
And you're saying the opposite. Like, I'm getting stronger because now
yeah,
you're not putting the crap in that you were when you were in your 20s, and also
right,
the mind, what you're putting into your mind.
yeah. It's about lifestyle, so much about that whole, right? In order to always be able to get to the root cause in any moment, in any experience, it's about embracing that whole, which is why we have four pillars rather than just one, right? And then we integrate them into that, because everything needs power, into that highest power. But so well said that that's an understanding that sickness comes with age, right? But it's not true.
And then the other one is the belief system. And I can hear some people talking, especially some men that are already lean. Oh, fasting will make me too skinny. It's not good for me. I mean,
Yeah,
women and men say this, and I can attest that it's amazing for you. And it can actually help people that are too thin to actually gain weight because it resets the body, gets rid of those senescent cells, and like cleans house so you can actually absorb your nutrition. But what would you say to someone if, like, you're talking about 24 to 48-hour fasting? Not that they should start there, but like if someone is worried, like you were saying, like, oh, we'll just start you with 15 hours, right?
yeah, just do 15 nines. Do 15 nines one day a week. And then when you get comfortable with that, add a second day a week. And then when you get comfortable with that, build up to so that you're doing that every day a week, 7 days, 15 nines. And then you can take a step into 24 hours.
Longer.
Start with 18 hours because we know that's the cutoff point in general, that you start fasting for 18 hours in one day, and then you can bump up to 24 and then go from there. And that's the scientific way to do it, because it's also important that people tune in to measure their progress. And sometimes when people dive in on the deep end and they meet with challenges right away, and then they climb out of that ocean and they're frightened to go back in, and they also have not had a means of gradually ramping up, because that gives you time to journal and to measure the benefits, right? You need a time frame with which to do that, and sometimes it's better to ramp up in order to have that time to say, yes, I'm seeing improvement little bit by little every day.
I agree. So the journaling of what you're experiencing, and then what would you say are some, like, because I know it's hard, someone will do a fast and then they don't want to do it again because it was hard. So I like doing the shorter ones, but what would you say maybe within the first week are some things that people are going to be noticing if they
Ah,
start shortening their eating windows?
well, it also depends on what they've been eating, right? So if you've been eating a lot of packaged food fragments and processed sugar, things like that, the first thing that you're going to notice are withdrawal symptoms.
Okay.
But as you start to fast, you're going to notice a lot of these different things crop up in the body. You may not feel well at first. There may be nausea. There may be an increase in your body temperature. You may feel fatigued at first. This is why it does help. A lot of people start fasting from reading a book, but this is why it's good to start where you have some coaching or some people who are going to support you in helping you to monitor your progress, people who have gone through it and know, for example, that there are going to be withdrawal pains
Right.
depending on what you've been eating and what kind of lifestyle you've been leading. So people should be aware of the fact that there are going to be these withdrawal symptoms. This is a lot of where people say, I don't want to fast, because they haven't been properly prepared for this fact that if you've been putting garbage into your body and not leading a healthy lifestyle, and all of these things combined, and impacting yourself by exposing yourself to EMFs and all of these other environmental factors, and you've been doing that for a long time, then you cannot expect that there's going to be a miracle in one day that suddenly all that's going to disappear. That's not the way it works. Effort has to be put in, and there are withdrawal symptoms, just like a hard drug addict. You know, sugar is a drug. It's processed sugar is more addictive than cocaine. And some of these other foods that people eat, it's the same thing. So early fasting, for many people, there are these withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah.
And so that's when they need the support of someone who says, you know, I went through this. Let me tell you how I dealt with it. Just push through just a little bit longer, just a little bit more. So that's the first thing that people can expect. If, because some people, when they start to fast, they hit a brick wall and now they can't function for the rest of the day.
Right.
Now, if that's the case, you stop fasting.
So
And
12 hours,
then,
like, yeah,
right,
just start with.
you stop completely. But then what the body is telling you, because a lot of people are really deficient in nutrients. We find this, it's amazing how many people are deficient in macronutrients and micronutrients.
Mhm.
So then we'll put them back on a fast where they have vegetable broth 2 or 3 times a day while they're fasting,
Salt,
right?
mineral salt, right? Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of nutrition in the body, or one juice, right? A fresh
Celery
juice,
juice or something. Yeah.
vegetable juice. And so we'll work them back in gradually that way by taking in some nutrient dense liquids. And that really does help. And then they're able to make the leap to just water after they gradually bump up to that, because a lot of people have withdrawal symptoms, which are good. But you know, the moment there's any little thing, people think, oh, you know, I'm sick. Even with the flu, you know, even with this whole COVID thing, we have to understand that often when we have fevers, etc., it's a cleansing process. The body and the cells are making an adjustment that's necessary, that's going to benefit protecting ourselves in the future by that event, that there's a cough, that there's a fever for 2 or 3 days. So people have to kind of shift their understanding about what these kinds of things signal. It's better to ask the question, okay, what adjustment is being made here, and what adjustment do I need to make to ensure that whatever is occurring now in my body results in addressing a root cause making me stronger, having me heal. It's better to look at this symptomology that way than to say automatically I have symptoms, there's something wrong, and this shouldn't be.
Well, I love that you're tying this in because, that is a kind of a fear that people have, like, let's just say, of contracting COVID. And we both know it's the host.
Yes.
So a healthy host, an alkaline host, cannot host disease.
Right.
And so your whole foundation, all your pillars, even the meditation part and the mental part, is creating alkalinity or acidity. Stressful thoughts create an acid body. And so instead of being afraid of something, like asking yourself the question, well, what steps can I start to take to feel safe in my body? Which is everything that you're talking about, the meditation, the chanting, the movement, the
Yes.
food, the fasting. All
Yes.
of that is going to give you, even if you take it in small increments, an experience of feeling agency. Like, I have control with this body. I can do something. I don't have to just wait for something to come around the corner and attack me. Right?
Absolutely. There's an old saying that one of my mentors taught me that no matter what kind of illness it is, illness is always an invitation to wellness. It's always a message that something has to be shifted. And in that way, honestly, through my own battles with really bad health, now I understand each of those events as a blessing because I would not have arrived at this point without those events. And so in that way, it was a real blessing of grace when I had these huge breakdowns and I was very, very sick, because it really awakened in me an awareness of what I needed to do to get to the root cause. We're always back to the root cause. and
So often, like,
yeah.
I'm sure your business is founded on the fact that you wanted to just be in service and share this after you learned it.
Yes, I had an exceptional spiritual mentor, my spiritual leader, and then I had an exceptional holistic healing mentor, one of whom was Michio Kushi, who came with George Oshawa when they first started the macrobiotic movement. And so there's what I was given from these great beings, I can never repay. It's not possible. So I started the school as a way of saying thank you, as a way of showing gratitude to God and to these great beings for what they gave me, for which I can never repay. And now it's become a duty to offer thanks in this way.
Yeah. Well, I love that you're offering this because I know it's helping so many people. And you have a retreat, a weekend retreat coming up for conquering your fear, which I think is just such a great, good timing. Because as we talked about in the beginning, so many people are just in this place and not knowing how to get out of it. So can you tell us a little bit about what that weekend's going to be about?
Going to be a great weekend. We have 7 really wonderful retreat leaders who are offering 10 lessons, and it's conqueryourfears.org. Conqueryourfears.org is where people can go. And I think Elena will have a post about this at some point. She may provide a link, and you should use that link when she provides it. Elena is also offering a retreat lesson on this wonderful retreat. And what we've done is we've brought 7 experts together, each of whom has their own really excellent and unique approach to addressing fear, because where there is fear, there is no intelligence. And we have been in a state of emergency for more than a year where, truly speaking, and I say this because we have a research team here at our school that we put together back in March of last year, 175 doctors who are treating SARS-CoV-2 on the front lines. Research scientists, one of whom was the first person to ever sequence this particular virus, who's a close friend of mine, and a whole host of medical professionals that we put together, all of whom continually tell me and us that this virus is no different than any other flu season. It's no more disastrous than a tough cold. It's not to be feared, the wild virus, I'm saying. But so we're not in a pandemic of a virus and never have been, but we're in a pandemic of fear. And that's very clear.
Yes.
That through fear, our entire culture here in the US is being shifted. We have a culture where people are frightened not to wear masks.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading an article today where there is a senator in the US Congress who refuses to wear a mask. And they've insisted that when she come onto the assembly floor, she has to sit in a plexiglass box. So just people need to understand this. You're wearing a mask that you're told is protecting you from infection of a virus. So why do I have to wear a mask?
Exactly.
If you believe you're protected, I don't need to wear a mask. Now, here's the deal. Most people know the mask doesn't protect them. They know it. They're frightened. They're paralyzed to the point where they're just following along because they think there's going to be some other horrible event if they don't obey. Masking up is a behavioral change that is being forced on us by our government. Here's a second one. Remember back in March, folks, where the narrative was, we need a vaccine to address the virus. And then once we have a vaccine, once the vaccines roll out, states of emergency will be lifted. Now what are they saying? The vaccine is not a vaccine. Yeah, it's first of all, it's not a vaccine. I've got an attorney. We review the FDA filings of every single vaccine manufacturer for emergency use authorization. And they all say the same thing. This product is experimental gene therapy. It is not designed to prevent infection of any contagion. It's only designed to address clinically significant symptoms of a cough or a fever. Now, I don't need an experimental drug to address a cough or a fever. But the point is, the narrative was, wait till we get the vaccines. We're going to be done with this. Everything's going to be fine. Now, what are they saying? You're still going to have to keep your masks on. You're still going to have to social distance, even if you get the jab.
Yeah.
So this is God's challenge. God is putting down a challenge to each and every one of us. Will we continue to accept the brainwashing of fear, or are we going to engage our innate courage, reach for fearlessness, to stand on the truth, and to push back? What kind of life do we want on this planet? This is God's message. We now have to decide collectively. Do we want to live in our God nature? Do we want to live in harmony with nature? Do we want to live in a way that's holistic? Or do we want to live in a state of fear? So the Conquer Your Fears weekend retreat is designed for people, no matter what your fears are, to begin to address your fears at the root level. We always have to go back to the root cause because fear can be eradicated permanently. There's no question about this. In 18 and a half years in our school, we have done case study after case study after case study. We follow people for long periods of time. We know that they're becoming fearless. We know that they're having permanent change. In order to address this pandemic, quote unquote, that we're in, is going to require intelligence. And we can't be intelligent when we're in a state of fear. If we abolish fear, we can come together right now and we can address both things simultaneously. Is there a public health crisis because of a virus? Yes, the virus is real. Can we address it while also not stripping away people's God-given rights and civil liberties? Yes, of course we can. Of course we can.
People out of business.
Yeah, so many people out of business. We had a horrible year last year at our school just because we're a retreat center and people are frightened to travel. We're just now starting to pick back up. So fear it's useless. It's useless. It has no use. So on the Conquer Your Fears retreat, Elena's presenting, I'm going to be presenting. We have several other people. It's going to be a wonderful, life-changing event because every retreat leader has something wonderful to offer to address eradicating fear at the root cause, which is entirely possible.
Yes.
Fear has no use. Fearlessness is our natural free state of being.
And we owe it to each other. I feel like we all owe it to each other to be fearless, because if I can be fearless to not wear a mask, then other people will be like, and I've seen it happen. The person's like, oh, why am I wearing this?
Yes.
Over and over and over again. So like, who's the one that's afraid? Like if we're both pretending that we're afraid because we're, we all owe it to each other as a community to step into our fearlessness and then make reasonable choices that that make complete sense to us, not just doing it, and even though it sounds stupid, because you're
Yeah.
sending yourself a message if you're doing
This is
something.
the other thing. You brought up such a great point, that in this pandemic, people are so paralyzed, they're not even vetting the actual science. I have so many people I talk to who are not interested in the actual science. And so without that, we've got to be informed.
Mhm.
Informed consent is our constitutional and God-given right. Informed means you take the time to vet all sides of the argument. Let's hear the whole thing. And then let me decide. I can decide based on having all the information, but also do not tread on my right to refuse,
That's
because this body is a temple in which God resides.
yes.
It is really the final frontier. And if we don't get out of this, collectively out of this state of fear, what we're doing is we are attacking this temple. We are putting ourselves in bondage where ultimately we do not have the ability to address this temple, which is our temple that we dwell in.
I love all of that. I'm really excited about this weekend. I'm going to be attending too, and I'll put all the links that you guys need in the show notes, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a podcast. But I just want to thank you so much for today. And I know this weekend is also going to be filled with some very calming meditations, and
Yes,
and I'm expecting people to walk away with a sense of strength and well-being and more peace and calm after.
absolutely. I've got lessons that are being offered with the first pillar, the spiritual power. We have yourself, who's offering a meditation. We have Ashana, who is a premier kirtan singer who works with meditations with singing bowls and is phenomenal. So a lot of this is going to be helping people to remove this false veil of fear enough that they can experience joy and peace of mind, because that's where people are then ready to embrace courage.
Exactly. And the price is only 49. I mean, you can't beat that for a whole weekend of amazing information. And we'll,
Plus, I'm glad you raised that. It's $49, but here's the thing. Anyone who enrolls gets access 24/7 to all of the videos of every retreat lesson for a period of a year, 24/7 access, and free MP3 downloads of every single lesson. So that's a great deal for $49.
yeah, I totally agree with you. Well, it's been great chatting with you. I'm really excited about everything you're offering on the East Coast, and I hope people check out your retreat center, even if they don't come for this weekend, to go and dive deeper into some of these practices.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me on. And I look forward to your sharing on the retreat.
Yeah, thank you. So let's just say one more time. So that's what's the website for the retreat?
Conqueryourfears.org. Conqueryourfears.org.
Okay,
And then Elena will paste the link. And
right.
when you see a link, use that link, conqueryourfears.org.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, I will see you this weekend or the weekend. And thank you for being on the show.
March 6 and 7.
March 6th. That's coming up.
Good to mention the date. And
Yes.
thank you so much for having me on. It's always a pleasure, Elena.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.